be strong leaders with integrity, reliability, and commitment to our community. Please help us to serve with sincere compassion, honesty, and grace. Please give us open eyes to see the needs of our city and open ears to hear perspectives that may differ from our own. Help us to always remember the needs of the few as we make decisions for the many. Thank you for this opportunity to serve the city of Falmouth. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And we're gonna move Paul up to the front here as guest. I'm sure he's had a long week now that tax season's closing out. I'm sure he wants to get home and probably relax. So he sent us over a budget proposal amendment. And you wanna kind of take, the biggest part is moving money like out of the ABC fund, but if you wanna take over.
Okay, so everybody have that piece of paper there?
It should be, I think it's the very last thing in your stack, maybe? Yeah.
Just a little 3-column spreadsheet.
It's the last, very last page of your,
There we go, hide at the bottom.
yeah.
So the first column is the budget as council passed to start the fiscal year with that ordinance number up there. So that's the original budget we've been operating under. The second column is the changes, and then the third column will be the amended budget. So my recommendations to you are to make these changes. First, the insurance premium tax is running higher than we anticipated. I think we talked about that a couple meetings ago. Money's coming in. We can't control that at all. It comes in or it doesn't, but it's been coming in each quarter higher than we expected. So I think we can safely budget more revenue coming in on that line, which helps the general fund. We can transfer money, with your approval, from the ABC fund over to the general fund to help the police offset some of the costs there. So it's just going to transfer money, ABC account, general account, because it's resources to pay expenses out of the general fund. And then in the appropriations, those are the line items for the departments that we need to amend. So general government, as we're calling it now, would need a $100,000 amendment. Police would need 80,000. Public works would need 100, and streets and sidewalks would need 75. That would ensure that we don't overspend, which we're legally not allowed to overspend in any of those departments for the end of the year. Now that doesn't mean that we're going to spend that money, all that money. It doesn't mean that's going to carry over to the next year as we work on the budget for fiscal year 27. That's just going to get us compliant for the fiscal year that we're in to make sure we don't spend more than we appropriated at any time. So if we put 170 in and spend, if we did spend the 355 out, it'd be 185 less or more coming out of the general fund. So we'd still end up with a $500,000 surplus in the general fund at the end of the year, which is not too bad. And then we'll sharpen the pencil for fiscal year 27 on some of these departments, so we can make sure we can sustain the city's general fund and the growth.
I do have like 2 questions basically. Are we closing the LGEA, whatever, or is that money still sitting there?
That's still sitting there.
So that's still another, because there's like $200 and some thousand sitting in that account.
Right.
And did we move the money for them, that investment stuff? Have we done that?
Have not.
Okay, so we need to do, and then, I don't know if we need to do a line item for the green stick, the 11,000, or can we just take that out of?
You can just take that out of the
You've added
department's line.
that in, you
Right.
calculated that for
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yep.
Do we need to amend the budget to move the money for the investment pool thing?
No.
Okay. And then the LGEA, we can just leave sitting there, and then, and at any point that we need to, instead of having to pull money out of the investment, that's just kind of extra money we have sitting that,
Right.
okay. And then this, we're pulling the $100,000 out of the ABC fund, but that still leaves money in the ABC fund.
Yeah, ABC had,
I guess I think it's like 160 in there.
165.
Yeah. Yeah, so it leaves,
165 roughly, yeah, so there's still 65 in there.
and
then-
we did meet with Marty about
Yes.
the police budget. We've cut the overtime out for the remainder of the year. They've switched over to like 8-hour shifts to try and spread the coverage better. And we are retiring the police dog. So we're looking at ways to go ahead and start bringing their budget down. So, and we're hoping that they stay within the more the 825 that we set, but we're just trying to give ourselves a cushion to make sure that we don't have issues where they were spending money that we didn't know that was being spent. So I think this is just trying to cushion us out until the end of this fiscal year. But we did sit down with Marty to try and we're reducing the costs in that department.
Yeah, what we can't do is come running back in here June 29th saying, oh, we need to appropriate more money for this department or it's gonna be overspent. So
Yeah, we
need to
do.
get that money
Yeah.
set in there now. And again, it's not like it's going to be spent. We just need to make sure we have that cushion in there because you're legally not allowed to spend more than you've appropriated.
Yeah, because remember last year we had to hurry up. I think we ended up passing the new budget and then we're doing a budget amendment to clean up what happened last year. So we're just trying to we don't need that to happen again. So, and this also changes where before we hadn't actually ever budgeted in the general fund anything towards public works in the streets and sidewalks. So that also includes, we're making that change now where that is actually being budgeted out of our general fund because we know the utilities can't pay for all the public works stuff now. So that kind of fixes some of the things is why you're seeing the money. But I think we have to put it in the ordinance or whatever, but we wanted to give it to you guys so that Steve can work on an ordinance for the next meeting to have a first reading of the budget. But do you guys have any questions? Do you guys want to change anything? Do you guys?
So I guess my question would be, if we're transferring the 100,000 out of ABC, and then just putting it into the general. Now, the ABC is strictly police department. They're
Correct.
the only ones that can spend out of ABC.
And
So
Megan.
yeah, well, and
Yes,
Megan,
yes,
because part of her salary can come out of
Right.
it, and so on and so forth. So I guess my question will be, if we're moving the 100,000 out of ABC to kind of help alleviate some things that ABC is supposed to be covering that it hasn't. So with that 100,000 and Megan and the police department being the only ones who can spend that, so I guess what I'm asking is, what is the justification for the other 80,000 into the 821?
That is where he's moving it. So we're taking it out of the ABC and he's putting that into the police budget. So he's taking it out of the ABC fund and now we're moving it into the police department because it can't just, it's going into general fund, but it's going into the police line item because that's who gets to spend.
So essentially the 80, or the 100,000 is essentially, a majority of it will be going to the police.
Oh, absolutely.
And then
Yes.
whatever portion, I guess, that could be covering Megan's salary would
Right.
go into the rest of it.
Yeah, that's why he's got the
because
80
that's not
and
already
the,
police.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I
Yeah.
understood that right. I didn't,
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't like moving 100,000 and then giving another 80 on top of that.
No.
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
no, that would be.
Yeah, I see what you're
Yeah, that
saying.
top part, the top section is the revenue, the bottom is
Yeah.
our expenses, so
Yeah.
that's why it's in there showing that we're taking it out of the revenue section and actually line iteming that into a expenditure in our expenses.
Okay.
And it's going into the line item for the police because that's
Yeah.
who, or majority of it is because that's who can spend. And we've talked to, already figured out, what that was going to, because you can't pay for like whole things or whatever, and so we're doing partials and that's what we sat down with Marty and worked out, so we could kind of, and this, because we knew this whole time they were gonna go over that budget that we had set, and so this fixes all that, they won't go over budget, and we're still hoping, now that we've made some scheduling changes, and that we will stay under, but it's given us we've learned a lot this year with the expenditures, I think.
And then our next monthly budget, is that next week, or not next week, I'm sorry, next meeting? Or is it?
For the
meeting
budget
after
for-
that? Yeah, for the previous month.
Reports?
Yeah, the reports.
Yeah, the reports for, for March, or should be in your package. It got
I-
done late today.
Just got them.
Yeah, she
Sent
just
it to
got
you.
Yeah,
Okay.
It is the- it
Zane
is
sent them
the
to me during the
tax
last
season.
meeting.
yeah, they were after 5 o'clock when they
Yeah.
got done, yes.
Yeah.
Not a problem. I was just curious.
Going back to that, I don't understand that though. This looks like it's 100,000 for mayor council and then an extra 80 for police.
Right. So the way to look at it is on the revenues up here on the top. So we're gonna have, if we move the money that I suggested here, we're gonna have $2,068,000 available for us to spend in the general fund. You guys can spend that money however you want. I'm saying that if we put 80 more in police, 100 more in general government, 100 more in public works, and 75 more in streets and sidewalks,
Okay.
we'll have our expenditures covered. So it's not like, does that make any sense?
Yeah.
We got the $2 million up here we can spend. Let's spend it however you guys want to spend it. You can spend all $2 million on fire.
And then
Nothing
we're
on
still
anything
gonna
else.
end up
All
with
$2
the-
million on sidewalks, nothing, you know.
Yeah, and then we still end up with a surplus. I mean, he shows us ending with a
Right.
surplus of over $500,000. And then we still have money in 200-some thousand in the LG. Like, there's still other pots of money that we're not budgeting into the
Right.
general fund.
And I
That's
don't,
still
I don't think
something.
any of the departments will hit the amended budget amounts, which is the whole idea of making sure they have enough cushion. Nobody's just gonna spend it to spend it.
Well, yeah, they can't spend anything. You guys know that without approval, so.
Right. So it's not gonna happen. Let's just get this in legal compliance.
And the utility, we're just leaving as it is because that is what it is. And once we get our rates and all that, the revenues and stuff, that'll be more of a learning experience for next year as we figure out how the different revenues will increase and spending there. But this really just this is just the general fund.
So like Sabrina said, it'll take an ordinance from you to amend the budget, so
Yeah.
this
So
is
the
just
next
giving you the information to think it over. If this is what you wanna do, then you can have a first reading and a second reading on it.
If you guys don't have any other questions, and
It's the 11,000 for the
he's included
green
that
seat that's included.
in our
Yes.
just the general government stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we can go ahead and
Yep, that should be
pay
fine with that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Happy tax day.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, now we are gonna accept the minutes for the meeting for April the 2nd. I'm sorry, it's a very short meeting.
Yeah, there's not much written in there.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 2nd.
I'll second it.
Everybody in approval? Alright, then the next, we're on to old business, and that is the parking lot agreement, and they had sent over some revisions and,
Yes, you have attached here to a copy of the encroachment agreement with all the exhibits that go along with it for the New Life Wesleyan Church in Falmouth. And everybody seems to be good with it, and I think we just need a motion to approve it here from council unless they have any questions.
they're gonna come tomorrow. You're sending them by tomorrow, right, to come up to City Hall to sign it, your
I'll
side?
get with them and see, just once we know it's approved, we can cover that part and get signed off on it.
So we need a motion to accept it?
Yes, in a second.
I'll make a motion to accept the agreement.
Everybody in favor?
Yep.
Right. You wanna get with them and have them come by and they can just sign it, or I can sign it, she can notarize it
I'll
and
get
then,
within the next couple of days, we'll get everybody rounded up and signing for it.
that works.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Now we're turning it over to Steve here.
Alright. This is an ordinance of the city of Falmouth, Kentucky, ordinance number, is there a number on top of that? 26?
2026, one.
Are we one?
One.
Okay.
We haven't done a single one.
Our first ordinance, 2026-1, an ordinance of the city of Falmouth, Kentucky, repealing chapter 110 of the Code of Ordinances in entirety and enacting a new chapter 110 to establish a comprehensive occupational license and tax system consisting of a graduated flat license fee based on gross receipts, 1% tax on net profits, and a 1.5% payroll tax. What we're doing here, we lay out our purpose, our definitions of business entity, compensation, gross receipts, net profits, and then because we have a city clerk or treasurer, we're allowing those duties to be shared between the two, depending on how the mayor wants to run that. 10.03 on the second page would require that all occupations have a license to do business here in the city. The license year would be from July 1 to June 30th next year, and then any person having a trade would be required to get a license. And we will, I guess you can, sorry, you can do a partial license for $10. That won't confuse me a little bit. Then you have 105, or 10.05, the graduated flat occupational license fee schedule we discussed, where for every 100,000 that fee increases by $50. For everybody in the first year, it will be $50 because we won't know what they make. 6 is just a renewal provision. 10, my numbers have gotten funny on me here. 10 should probably be 9. Occupational license on tax on net profits, that'll be the 1% on a taxable net profit. Your occupational license tax on compensation, I see why it's numbered that way, sorry. 20, occupational license tax compensation, that would just be your flat occupational license fee down at 1.5%. And then within that is also that's your payroll there, sorry, that's your 1.5%. And that's really it, unless there's any questions. And this would go into effect July 1st.
For the occupational license part, it's July 1st. For the payroll tax, are we doing that starting this July?
The flat license fee is 05, shall first apply license issued for business license beginning July 1st, 2027. The occupational license and net profits will take effect on July 1st, 2026.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're graduated, they've got another year.
Yeah.
And this is a first reading.
So we don't need a
No action.
motion or no action. So that's the first reading. We'll have a second reading at the next meeting. This resolution, we're not doing a resolution tonight because I spoke. As you can imagine, the water districts aren't happy about the rate study for a second time in 3 years that we've done a rate study. And so to try, they have some questions. And so I reached back out to Rural Water, Rural Water was who they wanted to do it. That's who they insisted we had to have it done with Rural Water. So it's a little odd that they're gonna come back and argue Rural Water's report. But trying to just get through the process so we're not, fighting this out with the PSC again, which I'm very confident will be successful in any appeal to the PSC on the rate, because we have a full rate study from Rural Water, and the guy that just finished, Mark Frost, who did the rate study, just retired from the PSC. So I don't think we're gonna be issues as far as our study not being good enough to get past the PSC. Rural Water's coming to meet with me in the districts, and Paul's gonna be there, and Christian will be there, on the 28th. So I agreed that instead of passing this tonight, we'll sit down and meet, but we are moving forward at the next meeting, is what I told him, because he thought it was part of our ordinance, and we'd need 2 readings, and I was like, no, we don't have, it's not in the ordinance, the wholesale rate is not in the ordinance, so we're just doing a resolution. So, to give us time, because this was yesterday afternoon when I reached out to Rural Water and kind of told them that the water districts had some, questions. So we set this meeting up, for the 28th, so we can have it before our next meeting, but come the next meeting, we're moving forward. So we're gonna wait to do this resolution until our next meeting to give us a chance for Rural Water to come in and explain their methodology and process to the water districts on the rate study. So that's where we're at. But we'll talk about the rate study later on here in a minute. But so we're gonna put off on that one. Do you have the permit reports?
Yes.
Yep.
Fire, us, and police.
So we have department reports from the fire and the police and Megan. Right. Joe and Christian slacking this month?
Theirs was all encompassed into one because they got their months wrong,
Oh, okay.
so last month's was just a lot.
Okay. Have we had more people pay their delinquent taxes?
We've had a good chunk, surprisingly.
We've even had some that have paid up that had owed for years, that have come in and
Oh,
paid up, so.
I've had some paid 5-6 years in a row.
Yeah,
That's good.
so, yeah, sending out those letters have helped. And so this was the second, we sent out the first notices.
Well, just sent out the second ones Monday. Make sure it's covered.
You guys have any questions about any of the reports? Yeah, then we're gonna move along, so we need to, put out a request for proposal for, we need a new auditor, obviously, since, our auditor is now the treasurer, so we need, obviously, he can't audit his own work, so we need to hire a new auditor, so we are going to put out a request for a new auditor. Megan has, kind of joined this kind of group, clerks group thing, and she kind of asked around in there who other cities were using, so she's got some names, besides just publishing and all that, she's gonna send this out to some of the names that were recommended to her, and
Very many of them.
Yeah, just say at KLC, they made it sound like auditors were hard to come by because there were some cities that were like years behind.
yeah, and I found out though that there's some cities, on some of the project placement, like points, cities that don't have audits get some extra points for that. But we still need to do our audit. I was just kind of shocked by that because I guess they're so in worse shape than we are, apparently. I don't know. They get an extra point or 2 for that. At least we get our audit done every year, but, so, I don't know if you guys have any questions about that, but it's pretty simple. And we'll publish it and send it out and hopefully get some takers. I mean, it does help us that our budget, it's not a big budget compared to a lot of other cities, but at the cities that really struggle are cities like Butler really struggles because their budget is so much less than our budget. It's the smaller ones that seem to struggle more for some reason. So you guys good with that? All right, now we're moving on to the code enforcement board applications, and I just want to start this by saying none of this had anything to do with what happened a month ago. It just so happened to be that everyone's board seats expired the end of this month. And then in reviewing the ordinance, because I was kind of surprised on why all 3 of our board members' periods would end at the same year, because normally these things are staggered. Per our ordinance, it's supposed to be a staggered board, so we're gonna fix that. We are going to reappoint Joanne. She's gonna stay as a, like, so we're gonna do a 3-year, a 2-year, and a 1-year person, so that way we have 3. We're also supposed to have 2 alternates, is the other thing. So Joanne's gonna stay on for the 3, so we'll do that at the next morning meeting where we actually appoint people back on. So Joanne's gonna stay. Carolyn has agreed to stay for the year. And then we need to appoint at least one more full-time person, and then, put in some alternates. So these are the few that we had apply. Is it 2? Yeah. Did you come fill out this paperwork for work?
For what now?
Yes.
I have an application for it.
I do have a question. Can a city employee sit on a board? Because one of these people that applied also applied to be a part-time mower, and I hired him to be the part-time mower.
I think so.
Yeah, so,
Let me look at it, I don't think they can.
okay.
Do they have to be in the city to be on the board?
Hmm.
So, but
Because this one's not.
Which one?
where's Glen Lane?
James
Well,
Adams.
He can anyways, we were just talking about that because I hired him to be the part-time mower. So he's a city employee, well, part-time city employee, seasonal city employee, basically, so,
Yeah, cause that's like out,
yeah,
almost an okay then.
yeah. Another work was up there in apartment, right? So we have one person. So we still have time, if you guys know anybody else, or anybody in the public wants to, that is not a city employee, sorry Brody, that would like to apply to be on our code enforcement board, we are taking applications to fill seats on.
You have to live in the city.
Yes, so not you either, sorry Lindy, you're out, so, and I don't think you live in the city either, do you? So you 3,
Yeah.
right here, well, you're already on a board, I don't know how many boards you wanna sit on, Betty, but, Mr. Moreland, would you like to put on an application?
Can't do it
Like-
verbally?
Pass.
Yeah, I mean, if you just need to fill out there's a, is
It's
it
on the
online? It's on the website, but yeah, if you wanna be on that board, we're looking for people to be on that board.
Okay, I'll put in an application.
Okay, awesome.
Is that something that we've, advertised, like posted on the city?
Yeah, we put it
page?
on
Okay.
Facebook,
Okay.
yeah. So we,
I thought we did, but I couldn't remember for sure.
yeah, no, we did, so,
We always have trouble getting anybody to even wanna be on that board.
not anymore, we at least have 2
Good,
people,
good.
so. Okay, so if you wanna fill that out and then we'll appoint people at the next meeting. We're now gonna move on to our, water study, the wholesale water rate. So, since not everybody was on this when this started, 3.5 years ago. So 3.5 years ago, when Sebastian was the mayor, he started pushing, and I of course don't know if there was discussion before Sebastian took the mayor's seat, I don't know what they were doing, I don't know, Joyce, were you guys discussing that beforehand, or is that when Ron was the wholesale rate being discussed before
It
that?
has been discussed before, yes.
Because it was like right after he took office as mayor that I went to a meeting with him and the water districts and talking about this rate study, so I thought there had been obviously some kind of discussion. And at that point, the wholesale water rate had been the same for like the last 40 years, 30, 40 years. When they first put it in place, the wholesale rate was the same from when they first started that agreement decades ago. And so we started this with Sebastian, and we were told we needed to get by the PSC, because the PSC doesn't regulate the cities, but the PSC regulates the water districts, and with that, they regulate what the water districts can purchase the water for. So the PSC couldn't tell us that we couldn't charge $3 per 1,000 to the districts. The PSC controlled if the districts would be allowed to buy it from us at that rate. So it's a kind of, they don't control us, but they're our biggest customer, so you kind of gotta play the game with the PSC. So we started that, and we had hired Mark Stevens to do a rate, more like a rate analysis type, a cost analysis, more or less. We did that. That went on for a few months. We got that report. So their rates were like 198 for one of the districts, and I think like 196 for the other district. In Mark Stevens' report, it was increasing them to like around 298 or 296. I forget, like they were each off, like one was like 2 cents more than the other. So it was almost like a whole dollar increase. The districts weren't happy about that. Challenged our whole report basically, because it wasn't a real rate study. And they were insistent then that they wanted one done through rural water. Well, moving forward, I think by time Luke was the mayor, I think Luke was the mayor when Mark Stevens finally brought us a number. Because, I mean, these things take months to get done. So at that point, we served the tariff notice to the water districts. And that was like a 30-day notice that their rate would increase. They, of course, appealed it because you have to serve it to the PSC and to the 2 districts. They appealed it to the PSC, which put our rate increase on hold until the PSC does like this investigation, basically, of it. Well, our former city attorney failed to defend us in that appeal, so that appeal ended up getting dismissed, which meant that we could not implement our new rate. Then that's when the decision was made, again under the prior city attorney, that instead of trying to play the game with the PSC, we're just going to go to the circuit court instead and try and seek relief from the circuit court to try and get out of this contract so we could shut the districts off and just not sell them water anymore. Of course, that triggered an investigation by PSC into us with that, because you can't do that. You can't just shut the water districts off with water. So then there was an agreement that was hashed out at that point, because there was a lot of case law that supported the fact that we would not even be successful in the circuit court, because it's like you can't just go circumvent because you can't get past the PSC, and we got our butts handed to us in the PSC because, again, our city attorney didn't do his job. Not this one. So then we had to start all over. So we sat down with the water districts at that point and worked out a new agreement. And in that agreement, we had to do a rate study with rural water. And it started off very bumpy. So that agreement was kind of hashed out in like December, January.
And all 3 agreed to pay for it.
All 3 agreed to pay for it. And I thought in that also was that they would back pay us based off of the new rate. I know the PSC would never give us that because that's not a thing through the PSC. But that was the agreement that was sat down and discussed. And they would agree to a partial increase until this rate study was done, because it would take like 270 days, I think is what our contract with Rural Water said, is how long they thought it would take us to get it done. So we knew it was going to take months to get it done. Well, unfortunately, the working relationship with Bob Miller when I first took office in April, so that was worked out in like the beginning of the year. By the time I took office in April, and I'm like, so where are we at on getting this done? I'd come to learn that it hadn't even gotten started yet, because there's been a lot of drama with all this stuff. Bob Miller was upset, and basically I had to beg him to start this. And this is the agreement, and we had to go with Rural Water, so I couldn't hire somebody else to do it because that wasn't part of the agreement. So we finally started getting that moving last April. Well past the 270 days, because you guys know we were waiting for that when Bob Miller wasn't doing it anymore. We got Mark Frost. Fast forward, here we are, and it's finally done. The water districts again are upset, so now we're gonna sit down with them, and Rural Water is going to, they're basically questioning, like, they want all the documents that support the numbers, which when they asked me for that, because that was all supplied to Rural Water. Rural Water came, like Bob Miller came here and went through some of our stuff in person. So like they basically audited our stuff. They went through our accounting system, and now that we also have an independent treasurer that's separate from he's not a city employee, that also opened up, Bob felt much more confident about the information he was getting from Paul. So there wasn't a constant need for him to come down here and rechecking the stuff that we were sending him. But that's what the the districts, wanna know how they got this number, and I'm like, I don't know, we gave them all the information, and this is the report they gave us, I don't know all the information there, and told them to reach out to Rural Water for the supporting documents or whatever, so that's when Rural Water called me, and we're just gonna sit down and have a discussion with them. But there is an option in here, so the increase now, in July, they did the partial increase to the 265, because I think, honestly, we all kind of thought it would be around Mark Stevens' number still, which was the 298. So that would have been like a meeting kind of somewhat in the middle. Well, come to find out, their new rate should be $4.21 per 1,000 gallons, which is like another, I don't know, $1.50 or something that is going to increase again. We could phase that in. My kind of argument is I feel like it's been phased in. We started this 3.5 years ago. Yeah, like we
4
said,
years.
they've had plenty of notice that this was coming. I do get that it's probably higher than what they thought it was going to be, but here's the other reality of this whole thing. When they gave us, or finally agreed to do that 60-cent increase that got us to the 265 in July, right after that, they turned around and filed an increase on their own customers, which is they're going to do the same thing with this rate increase. They're not going to actually take the rate increase. They're going to kick it over to their customers, that's their thing. I don't know if that's something that when we sit down with them, what we're trying to avoid is going through the whole appeal process again. Because if they appeal it, we can serve them the tariff. We can say, no, we're just doing the 421, effective in 30 days. Serve them their thing. My guess is they're going to appeal it, which I'll be honest, they might just appeal it anyways, just because they know it's going to get drugs put on hold for 5 months. If the PSC decides they want to investigate, we're hopeful that since we've got this study with Rural Water this time that we'll get past this. But again, the PSC is a whole animal in its own. I know in the end we'll be successful. So we could agree to phase it in and take them from the 265 to the 367, and then in 5 months or 6 months. I don't think we should phase it out for a whole year. I think if we're going to phase it, at best we'll give them this 5-6 month cushion, basically. And so in Rural Water's suggestion was we're basically giving them $1.02 increase now, and then they'll do the other 54-cent increase like as phase 2. So, but this is the report. I don't know if you guys want all the supporting documents that go along with it. I can have Rural Water send that to everybody if you want, but it's really, I mean, it's just numbers of the cost of what it costs us to make the water, which we've known for a very long time that, unfortunately, because we had that contract that we had to supply them the water, that we were actually providing water cheaper than what it was costing us to make it. So this whole time, the electric's been carrying this. The water plant's been losing money because if we were just gonna sell water to the city residents, we'd only have to run that plant like every 2-3 days. All these water storage towers we have is for the district's benefit, really, because we sell them millions and millions of gallons of water. I mean, like, the water that we actually sell, or like within the city or region to our customers that are right outside the city, the percentage is so much lower of how much water the difference is in selling it. But this will fix that. They've suggested we do these every 3 years instead of once every 40, which 100% we should have done one a long, long time ago. And I think a lot of it was, there was some attempt back in 2006 to do some type of increase, and it didn't go well. I think just between the misinformation and from the districts and what the cities knew, it was a mess then, and for whatever reason, the city just never thought they could actually go after an increase. Like they weren't allowed to because it was in the contract, the price was, which even in the contract, though, it clearly states that the contract's in place for that many years, but the rate could be adjusted. So we now know every 3 years we need to do this. And then going forward, the next time we do one of these, in 3 years, if they say, oh, we need a 3% increase, 4%, that would be across the board, not just to the districts, we'd also be doing increases on our residents too. And that's the other thing, hiccup with the districts, I think they're upset about, is our residents aren't taking any kind of increase. I think we discussed at the.
Yeah, but they did in 2018.
Well, that was my argument. They have gotten their rates increased all along over the 40 years, though. So they've taken that. But going forward, though, just so we're all aware, when these are done every 3 years, and this is just to make sure that your plant is generating the revenue between the cost of what it's costing us to make the water and that we're sustaining that, because we need to be able to invest back into the plant and the system. So we're gonna wait another 2 weeks to give us some time to try and sit down with the districts and come to a common ground on how we're gonna move forward with this. But I don't plan on, I mean, this is the number. I think we've been more than,
I think that too. I mean, I think we've already been down this road. I mean, and that was their thing, is that they wanted us to have this study. We had the study, and now they want to backpedal. I mean,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I thought they said that they'd be okay with whatever they.
That was the
That's
agreement, and
what I
that's what I said. I said that granted, and I wasn't there for that part of the agreement that was hashed out. That was with Luke and Brandon and the districts. But that was the understanding, was that no matter what the number was, we would all accept the number.
That's what we heard.
Because we,
I remember Luke saying that, because we even mentioned, it's like, well, if it's lower for some reason, then, you know, we have to deal with that.
Yes.
yeah, that was it. No matter what the number was gonna be, that was what we were gonna have to take. And I looked up, I mean, in my emails back and forth with the districts yesterday, I mean, I pulled up, I got on the PSC website, pulled up the tariffs, which is what they basically, the price that they sell, the sheets that the PSC uses when you're selling water as a municipality to the districts and whatnot. And I looked up all the other municipalities in the state, basically. And then I kind of narrowed it down to the ones that had increases or a tariff that was filed, I think 2022, it was like the latest, or the furthest back. And that one was like at $3 and something anyways. But everywhere else that has had a study done here recently, they're at $3, $4 in between. Some are a little higher than ours, I mean, Augusta, Cynthiana's been at almost $4 since 2002. They're the ones that were the furthest back. So I mean, this isn't.
Is it Northern Kentucky for something?
Yeah, and that, I mean, that they knew all that then, because one, Austin buys, we're not the only person that supplies water to people in Pendleton County. Austin purchases, Pendleton County Water District purchases wholesale water from Williamstown, from Northern Kentucky Water, and then I think it's still Austin that actually buys from Augusta, basically from Bracken too.
No, that's Joe.
It is Joby. Okay, so we're not the only people supplying water into the county's water system. So they're well aware what the rates are everywhere else. I don't know why they've given us such a hard time about it, but so it's not like this is a shock or we're way off track here with our numbers or there's something way wrong, but
So does the PSC have to okay it?
you have to send them notice. And essentially, yeah, they kind of give it its blessing, but basically if the districts don't contest it or appeal it, then they're just kind of, Mark Frost had mentioned whoever was in charge of the PSC prior to whoever's in charge now, he used to want to investigate, even if everyone was in agreement, he would still want, but I guess it came from like the Attorney General's office, and so that was in his nature to want to look into everything. So he wouldn't just, if everything was fine, let it go. But this one does, if everyone's in agreement, then why, and that's it, like there's nothing, like Mark's and even Daniel threw, there's nothing that stands out that's gonna flag any kind of, the number's pretty consistent with everywhere else. The only increase we've had in 40 years was that 60-cent increase that they agreed to last July. So I feel like it's somewhat been phased in already. Because it's almost a year since we got that. And it'll take 30 days though, once we give them the notice. So once we give them, if we pass the resolution at the next meeting, Mark is going to have us, the tariff prepared for us. We'll send that up to the PSC. We'll file that with the PSC. Then we will send the notice to the 2 districts. And then in 30 days would be the quickest that we would get the increased rate. Unless they appeal it, of course. then that's where Steve comes in. And Mark is still getting me the, since it really wasn't in our contract for them to do where we wanted them to look at the sewer and the water rate, that really wasn't part of the contract that we had initially done. So, but he does have, he's gonna get us that kind of the, what we need to kind of increase the sewer plant residential, and then I've gotten the numbers from Megan and Juanita on like how many non-city residents we have, so we can restructure that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask, because I know you mentioned you wanted to use this as a vehicle to restructure that ordinance and completely redo it. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, and because the sewer plant, the reality is there wouldn't, we need a pretty large increase on the sewer rates. I would like to, sorry to anybody that doesn't live in the city limits that purchases water or uses our sewer system, I would like to put most of that cost onto the people that do not live in the city. I mean, especially, I mean, like you guys saw earlier when we talked to the ad, we still, I mean, that, the total loan for the sewer line we ran up to the high school was $600,000. We took out a $600,000 loan to run a sewer line up to the high school.
It's the high school and what? A few
Thinking-
houses?
Well, they
Like-
just added the farmers.
Thinking
markets
they
last
thought
year.
that people would hook onto it, they didn't.
Yeah, no, but like, and we've extended, it's not just them, we've extended, I mean, our water line goes all the way down to Hammer. That Shoals Tower out there south of town does not service one city resident. So we have all this infrastructure that we have invested in that is not even in the city limits. So, and it's very standard that there's people that, well, actually, most cities don't let people just hook onto their systems, they actually make them annex. If they're gonna hook on, if you want the services of the city for sewer and water, you have to let them, you have to be annexed. And that is actually in our ordinance, that the people that did hook onto the sewer water, and that's where, you know, but how I've kind of discussed before, I think starting with changing the rates to a non-city resident rate, or a non-city resident and a non-city commercial, and then a city commercial, city residential rate would open up the discussion maybe in a year or two as another perk of why they should annex in. Like, then we could annex in the rest of up here on, up the hill, up off Reservoir, and annex in those houses, because we have all that infrastructure there, the water and sewer lines are ours to maintain. Some of these broken hydrants are up there, like all this stuff is ours that we have to fix and maintain, it's not even in the city limits. So if we're extending our services outside of the city, it needs to be a little more beneficial and not just the same as everything that the city residents are doing. And that's what Mason's challenge was when he tried to annex the East Side Park or whatever was that. So he did an increase on, percentage increases on everybody at East Side Park so that they would be more inclined to annex when that came back up again. So we'll have that other part of it little, it's not gonna be a big study, it's just kind of gonna be more of a cost analysis basically of what we need to get at, and then my math's not very great, but I'm gonna try and sit down with the numbers that Megan gave us, and I don't know if any of the other math wizards up here would like to help try and structure how we wanna spread the percentages out, or how we wanna look at doing that. I don't know if that's something you wanna help with, Anthony?
Maybe. We're talking about the ordinance side of things.
Yeah, like how we would structure the rate increase, like if we did the city residential, what that would look like as opposed to the non-residential, and what percentage we would need to get at to kind of get the revenue that we would need to cover the cost for the sewer plant. The water plant is somewhat breaking even after we got the little increase we did, but we still haven't been able to afford to do a lot of big repairs. There's still things that need to get done within the water system and the water plant. But at least we're not losing money. The sewer plant, we're losing money, so.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that with this, and actually being able to earn some money off it, as you're saying, they recommend every 3 years we do a study. Those are not cheap, so maybe we can actually afford to do it ourselves without having to, can we split it 3 ways? And then it's a case of, this is what the study is. You may not have opted into it, but that's what we got. Your tariff's increasing again.
And they do, I forget who, I looked at one and they do kind of include that these cost analysis are kind of put into their increases. So. actually came out a lot better than what I thought it would. But it also kind of is a kick in the gut to know how much revenue that we're still missing there. But it's a good start. You guys have any questions? And I will say the reason why Mark Stevens' number was a lot lower was one, it was the cost analysis. They didn't really include the cost of the electric. So I explained that to Mark Frost that, no, we don't actually write a check for the cost of the electric, but we are supplying the water plant with the electric off of our electric revenue, basically. So it still cost us. And they went after the depreciation. That was the other big part of it, was the depreciation. That was not included in Mark's report. You guys didn't have, we're gonna move along here, so you guys didn't have any committee meetings because we had the ad here for their meeting. I did have a meeting with Head Start today, with the CAC Head Start building that's going up out there, kind of like a project update. So they are still waiting, they applied a couple years ago, because remember this whole started years ago, they were supposed to go behind the dollar store, that whole thing fell apart, then so when they switched sites, and they put all that front up money into looking into that site and studies and all the things they had to do there, like when they were moving and had to go with the site that they're on, it was gonna cost them a little bit more, and then the cost of things has inflated over the years, so they weren't gonna have all the funds they needed, so they were asking for additional funds from Head Start and the federal government, whatever they're still waiting for that additional funds, so they're not going to be able to open the whole entire building up when they open. And so what they asked me today was if we would be in agreement, and I kind of made an executive decision and said yes, that they're gonna complete, basically they're gonna get themselves moved from that location over on Barkley to the new building. So they're not gonna be expanding into the other classrooms at this time. But they're also not going to finish the road and the sidewalks and do some of the other things that are in the planning and zoning part of it. It's basically enough to get them into the door. Then when they get the extra funds, then they're going to finish, obviously the inside, and finish out the road and the sidewalks and do those things. If we wouldn't agree to it, either way, like, it's not gonna get done. If we say, no, you can't, we're not gonna agree that we'll sign off for you to go ahead and get your occupation, your occupancy permit, it's still not gonna get the rest of that road paved any quicker, or the sidewalks put in any quicker, it's just gonna sit. So I think it would, be detrimental to them. They really need to get out of that old building. So the only thing is, and I talked to Brian Thompson, and so I think we're gonna try and work out, and with Brett Price, on how to ensure, whether it be some type of contract, whether, I think they want to look at maybe having them bond for the remainder of the street, just to ensure. But it's not like they're finishing the whole building and then, we'll get to the street. No, like they're compromising. They're gonna pave the parking lot, not the whole parking lot yet, because since they're not occupying the whole building, and then they are putting in the road to get to their place. So it's just not gonna be fully completed, but it's not, I'm pretty confident that, they're gonna keep going after that extra money because they wanna finish the inside too. So it's kind of a compromise that instead of finishing the whole inside, they'll do some of the stuff on the outside to get them where they can open. So I just kinda, unless you guys have any serious opposition to that idea.
Well, what happens if, we get an opportunity to develop something else on beyond that point? And here we got a hole in the road.
Yeah. Well, I guess worst case, if that were to happen in the next year or two, I guess we could, I don't know if we're allowed to front, I don't know how that would work. How would that work, Steve? Would we be able to front the money and then they would have to repay us when we got their additional funds just to finish the road?
Who's the
Head Start, CAC, so they're not a government, but they're quasi-government.
I don't think that we can loan money, because that's essentially what we would be doing. I can look and see if we can find a way to do that, but I don't.
Okay, You find out for us, cause the
Yeah.
part of that was, we were making them finish the road all the way to the end of their property line, remember, we weren't gonna let them just stop right there and end, so like we were making them pay
Yeah.
further down essentially. So, if you could find out, that's what we need to find out, though, is how we make sure that, cause they're gonna phase it now, basically, how we ensure that we can they get phase 2 done, or.
And I don't know if we, and it may just be because it's one-off, we couldn't do it. You know, you couldn't give one individual group a loan, but if we had a loan program, I think that, you know, like,
Okay,
I think that might be okay. But then that opens us up to, we'd have to be competitive and, you know, so let
maybe
me
we
look
could
and
find
see.
maybe we could find a group, somebody else to loan them the money. I don't know. Not the city,
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
look.
not the city, but
Yeah.
another group that would be gracious enough, if it
Like
ever
maybe
came
a
down to that.
grant, who knows?
I mean,
don't know.
yeah, if it ever came down to that, I don't know. Like, I don't think, because they're gonna be opening here somewhat soon, so I think their hope is to get this additional funding relatively in the next year or so. They're just not gonna have, it's just gonna take a little bit longer than what they
It's
thought.
not like we're gonna collect any property tax off of them or anything.
No, I know, it wasn't, I mean, we wanted them to go out there to the industrial park, but I mean, we essentially own that too, so we wouldn't have gotten property tax out there either, but they didn't want them out there. They were supposed to go to there's that small strip behind the dollar store that's owned by some estate up in Canada or something, and that's where it fell apart, was something about trying to get it, that's where they were supposed to go. And then we tried to find them other locations, God, I forget, there were like 3 or 4 other places that we helped them try to go look at it, but they just weren't workable. And so we just, at that point, like this community needs the Head Start. And so, it was a bummer, but it's for the good of the community, Steve. Just had to take one for the team.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the legislature doesn't care about the good of the community sometimes.
No, I know that. I hear that. But I mean, granted, I voted for that.
I mean, you
Just
guys,
to-
you
yeah.
guys could make it a city road and build it and then dedicate it back or something, but that would not accomplish getting the money back.
No, but actually, that's what they were, when they were going to go in behind the dollar store, they were supposed to continue the road from Monument and connect it all the way around the back of the dollar store and actually make that whole road, and then it was gonna be turned over to the city as the rest of the city road. That was the initial plans, if they would've gone where they were supposed to, was they were gonna finish it coming off of Monument that way.
It was the other guy was in charge, so I don't know whether it would happen or not.
Well, it was because they didn't get that space. Yeah, once they didn't get that space and they moved over there, like, we couldn't make them finish the road all the way over to Monument now. But, no, that one guy that came and pitched the whole thing, Nate or whatever, Nate and Lori, they're still in charge, just I talked to today. Oh, and then I do have 2 other things, so, I kinda mentioned it when we were talking about the ad. I am not gonna be here the first week of June. I will be in New York for my son's baseball tournament. There's a meeting that week. And then I was supposed to come ask, if Grace's little kindergarten graduation is also the night of the meeting before that. And I already missed her little recital, and so when she found out I was not gonna go to her graduation, she was pretty upset. So I am asking if we could adjust those 2 meetings to different weeks. If we could move them to any other, because it's the May 21st, so we'll have the May 7th meeting. I don't care if we do that one instead of on the Thursday, if we do it on a Wednesday or any other day.
But the 1st of June you're talking about?
Well, no, this would be for the May 21st meeting, that's the night of her little graduation
Oh,
thing,
okay.
yeah. Or you guys could say no, and I just won't be here, and then somebody else will have to sit here and actually run the meeting.
That sounds
Okay,
okay, we
with-
change it, I mean,
with whatever, but then that next meeting though, the 4th, I won't be here for that one, on June 4th either. Which, the 2 meetings, we need to have 2 meetings in June, because we're gonna have to pass the budget before the end of June. So we'll have one on the 18th. we could do one on the 11th. We could move them to the 28th, May 28th, so the 21st meeting to the 28th, and then the June 4th to the June 11th. Or whatever you guys, I'm open to any suggestions you guys have, or however you guys wanna do it.
So that makes sense to me. I don't have any conflicts with either of those.
Neither. So move it, the first one to the 28th.
And then the 4th to the 11th.
So I don't think I'll be able to make the 11th meeting in June. We got a vacation plan, so I don't think I'll be
Okay,
in town for that.
you guys wanna do the 14th and the 28th, and then not do another one to the 18th? Or we could, I mean, I hate to, we could switch the 18th to the 25th and just, we just have to, 2 readings of the new budget in June.
So I can't, I may or may not be able to do the 25th of June.
When do you go on vacation, Brad?
It's supposed to be that week, the 8th through the 12th. I could possibly play around with the beginning of that week, like Monday, Tuesday, maybe try and see if I can shuffle reservations or whatever, but I know the 11th, probably can't do nothing with that.
Yeah, no, that'd be kind of the middle of your vacation.
But I mean, if everybody would be alright with Monday or Tuesday in June, like that week.
I'm good.
I don't know what everybody else's schedule is.
I've got nothing else going on. I'll be back by, I leave on, the 29th, and I come back by the, 7th, I'll be back here. Cause the last day of the tournament's, Saturday, but it's a long drive. But I mean, we could do it on the 8th, it's up to you guys.
The 8th works for me, but I would prefer it not be like something stupid early, like 5:30, because I have
Yeah.
an office.
Yeah, I was planning on whatever day we switch to, like
Just
regular.
7 p.m. Yeah, that 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Mondays,
What day?
the first Monday of the month.
So the first, so it'd be the 1st of June is his meeting.
Then,
Okay.
as a Tuesday, the 9th is, if Emily's calendar is right, is a housing authority meeting, so that wouldn't work there.
Does the 8th work then for?
Yeah, I think the 8th fits best for me.
Anytime. I'm always for me.
June 8th.
It doesn't matter to me, I have no life, so. I'm going to take vacation, so.
Well, I was like, I don't have a life either, I just have kids that, you know.
Yeah.
Because vacations for my family is always centered around some type of sport, something. If we're going on vacation, it's because my kids playing somewhere. Oh, yeah, 100%.
21st and the 28th.
So, yeah, the May, we got June figured out, so May was 28th, or did we change that again?
No, we could do does the 28th work for everybody in May?
May, okay.
So we are gonna move our May 21st meeting to the 28th. And because we'll have to call special meetings.
Yeah.
And then we will move our June 4th meeting to June 8th.
June 8th, on a Monday?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, that works.
does that work for you, Megan?
Please send in a message.
Yes. Well, let's get closer.
Again, May, so the 21st is canceled, it's now the 28th,
Yes.
and then
And then again, the 18th. Of June, right?
Yeah, the June, we'll leave the 18th,
the 18th is, and then June 8th is the other.
Yeah.
June 8th. June 4th is what.
I feel like I've made it pretty good, since this, this whole
Yeah,
time.
yeah, so May will be 28 weeks.
I told you to.
Yeah, but you're retired.
That's right.
Huh?
You're retired you're free, aren't you?
Oh, no, I went back to work this week.
You did, yeah,
Where?
up at CAC,
Mhm.
speaking of the devil.
Really?
Not for Head Start though.
At Farm Bureau building?
I had to do a lot of talking back, I
Well, you should have done that.
I condemned all these employers that use age discrimination. I filled out a report that's going to the National Association of, the National Council on Aging, that's what it was. I had to
You
fill
didn't
out
turn
several
us in,
pieces of
did you?
paper. Pardon?
You didn't turn us in, did you?
No.
Okay, good, just making sure. Does anybody have any comments?
No. Yes, Betty Turner is on the sign-up sheet.
Is that, Ms. Turner, are you on the sign-up sheet? And Ms.
Yes, I didn't know if he was here for me.
I can't see the sign. Can you grab that for me, Joe? Joe's got it. It's just you, Mr. Turner, if you'd like to go.
Part of that, I'm sure you're gonna be tired of hearing, because I'm tired of coming about it. But 306 is a building that is being rented to numerous, and I do mean numerous people. Inside that building, there are not poppable plumbing services as far as showers, bathtubs, and toilets for each set of people that are moved in there and renting. They throw their garbage all over the place. There are now dogs turned loose all hours of the day and night.
Is that where that one big dog's coming from?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know
There's
where.
4 of the big ones.
Okay,
And they turn them loose, they come out, they use the bathroom all over in our yard, in the church's yard, across the street. The church cuts it, it's public. The domain between the gutter and where the sidewalks are. This is continuous. Something's gotta give. Does the man that is renting to all these people, does he have to pay the tax or whatever this is that's going up for somebody
Yeah.
running a business? Because that's a
Yeah.
business. That's not 1 or 2 people living in a house that you have, it's a 2-story house.
now,
That's
we'll
not
look
it.
up, we'll look it up to see
And
who.
it is constant, I mean, I have grandchildren that are no longer allowed to come to my house because of the drugs and drinking in that building.
You know, you talked about 308, that's fourth.
Yes, sir,
Yeah,
definitely am.
Did you say 308 or 306?
It's a 36, or that's all. I was
but you know,
yeah.
she's talking about the,
306
the
306
big-
is one of the buildings I want to talk about, that one's 308 where that is, where that's all going on. 306 is the old one
Yeah.
that they keep saying they can't do anything about. I have spent the last 5 weeks trying to clean up mess from behind that. Every time somebody moves out of that building, anything they leave gets thrown over the fence, back into that mess. And there are now 3 trees that have come down in the last 2 storms back there. And they're not little trees that I have any kind of tools.
that's the one we have the judgment on, but haven't actually been able to successfully get it sold by the master commissioner yet.
So,
So we need to see who owns that.
We have a judgment, we know who owns it, that's the one that we have the judgment on, that the master commissioner won't.
I mean, the 308.
The 308, yeah, we need to see who owns that, to see one, if they have an occupational license, and then if, I see the one dog out all the time, so.
it's constant, and, I mean, he'll take his dog out and just let it run wherever one, different people take it out at different times. But if your car's sitting there, dog goes and makes a mess up, oh, well, you shouldn't have been parked there.
Well, that's a violation right there, your dog running free.
They
Yeah.
there are no leashes on any of them, no tags like where your license number and stuff is, on none of them that comes out of that building.
So we know we have a leash ordinance and pickup ordinance of feces.
So Brody, you wanna get that dog catcher pole out, and
We actually can't use that.
well, we're gonna have to get with,
John Wood,
yeah,
I'll let him know.
Because, and that's why it says police on there, the last time I called them after having been here, they said, you need to call police, you need to call police. The one that usually stands back here, and he told me, well, he came from Boone County, and he knows what to do here, and he knows what to do there. When I called them, the female officer showed up first, and she tried to talk to him, because for over 4 hours, her and one of the men out of that building, or in the church garden, screaming, cussing, throwing stuff and carrying on. This was after I got home from work at 8:30 at night. And it's like, okay, I gotta leave here at 5:15 in the morning to go back.
Are people allowed to park in that church parking lot?
They have been asked not to, and even the parishioner said they're tired of the threats and the way these things go. So when I called the policeman, she was very, very proper, very pleasant. We're trying to talk, and then he pulls up and gets out, but he gets the man and takes him and leans on the back of my car with him. Come on, number one. Number two, then when they came back and they said, well, we're leaving, and she was trying to talk, and I looked at her and I said, so, in other words, absolutely nothing is being done when I call the police. And he goes, we're not gonna stand down here and argue with you all night, get in your house. I didn't get in the house, I sat in a chair on the porch, I thought, now come after me. Cause I ain't the smartest person on the face of the earth, but I ain't the dumbest one either. Got 6 attorneys in my family, and I'll call any one of them they want, and one of them has worked for this county for years. But he is extremely rude. If he don't like his job, other than to be Mr. Chris, go back to Boone County.
I will be addressing,
All I know is he said he's from Boone County. And that's-
I know who you're talking about. I will have a discussion with Marty and address that. I'm sorry.
It's not your fault, you're.
Well, no, I mean, but I'm sorry because, like, I wouldn't wanna live by it.
I mean, I don't bother anybody, nobody,
No, I know.
and it's like, come on, take care of the people that try to do what's right around here. All the stuff messes up, all the sewers, the floods, everything, I'm the one who took care of people's stuff over there on that street.
I will address the issue with the officer and then I will be proactive. I will try and get the dog situation addressed. I see the dog. I didn't know where the dog was coming from. I didn't know what the situation. I've seen it maybe 2 times. But I've only seen one. I didn't realize there were more of them down there.
Yeah.
I'm real funny about walking my dog and getting chased by people's dogs, so, yeah. Okay. Is that all that you have?
That's fine.
Anybody else have anything else?
Do I have a copy of the ordinance, the tax?
Yeah, sure, you can have mine.
You got probably started,
Yes, sir.
Is there any correspondence or reports on the water study you were talking about, or any
You want-
paperwork on that? Bounce
That
anything?
too?
Or is it about the water study?
Mm-hmm.
I have an extra one here.
Oh,
There
okay,
you go.
thank you.
We just need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Everybody